Hello and welcome to the No Faces Comic Chat. I am your host, Bub of BUB'S Comics. Imagine that. And with me, as always, the first guy waiting for the rest of us, Roger, a.k.a. Metarog.
Hey, greetings, everyone. Actually, today, Bub is incorrect. I was the last one in, but usually he's right. He's the one who's like teasing me about it, but great to be here with all you guys, and great topic today, Bub. This took a lot of foresight on your part.
We'll get into that in a minute. And with us, also as always, we have my buddy, your buddy, everybody's buddy, the guy who spends exactly 5 to 10 minutes. Exactly 5 to 10 minutes. You like that, Roger?
Yeah,
exactly 5 to 10 minutes. Developing new Instagram posts to confuse the Lowbrows. DS Comics.
Good to be here. Thank you for that introduction.
Oh yeah,
good. I know. I love just stirring the pot and poking the something that you would poke.
Oh yeah, tear it all down from the inside, huh?
Poking the sleeping bear.
I just put it out there with no description, and I just see what happens. That's always cool.
Oh yeah, good stuff. And let's see. So we're gonna start. We're gonna get right into it. And Roger, what's our team name for tonight?
Oh, geez.
Close.
The double dealers or something?
Close enough.
Okay.
DS, you got anything better?
No, I definitely don't have anything better.
We're the Double Vision Daredevils.
Oh.
I figure that's got to be tougher than being blind.
Well, what is a double vision daredevil?
Well, I would think that it's someone who sees two targets and hits none of them and goes right between them.
Okay.
You think you see more than what you actually do. Yeah.
Yeah, even his sonar is bouncing back doubles, man. He's having a hard time out there. Oh, man, that's all right.
Yeah, somebody told me there was 5,100 DD1s on the census now. I mean, I didn't know that was that high.
5,000?
Yeah, I heard there's 5,000 DD1s on the census.
Yeah, that's why I have never used the census as a determination of rarity. It is a determination of the opposite, though. You can see what book is certainly not rare, but it's difficult to see what books are rare.
Well, I'll tell you. Yeah, when you have, I mean, the census is a good indicator of sort of an idea of the population of the book, but you know, when you get Silver Age books that have numbers that approach the Copper Age books, that worries me because it's very sensitive to demand. And if demand drops slightly, it could really hurt the prices on that. So I don't know. I had a Daredevil 1, and I'm not getting back into it.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm happy to have mine, and I'm gonna keep it.
Yeah,
I mean, I wish I still had mine, but at this point, I'm not getting back in. So whatever.
Yeah. And in the chat, we have Las Cruces, 1971, Unruly Simeon, Area 51. What's going on? Good old Mikey boy, old Mikey, old pal, old Mikey, old brother, old Mikey, old pal. And we got Gore Vidal is here, or an unreasonable facsimile thereof. Good evening, Unruly Simeon, and everyone else here. ¿Qué tal, panel? Hey, and Mr. Panel himself, Roger, is here. Knights of Old, and you know what we say about Knights of Old. It's like watching butter melt this guy, I tell you. He's so smooth. There you go, smooth. Good to have everybody. Deadpool 2323, hey, hailing from the great southern state of whatever that place is, Florida. Good to have you, brother. Unruly Sons wanting to know how many people do you imagine want a Daredevil 1? If supply ever going to equal demand? I don't know. I'll see. That's true. There are a lot of people looking for that book.
Mm-hmm.
By 66, there were collectors. That's fair.
Yeah, I think the print runs are higher. I've researched it, and it looks like 1964 is like the line, and pre that the census numbers are noticeably lower, and when you get to 64 and after, the census numbers are drastically higher. So I've been trying to buy Silver Age stuff that's pre-64 this year, and I've been trying to get towards, after the census stuff. Yeah, I don't know. DD1, FF48, that stuff's really hot right now. But I'm just saying, I mean, I'm not going to get into the weeds like how many people are looking for one. Yeah, it's a popular book. It always will be. But you have the demand or that supply is going to be much more sensitive to demand changes than something that has, say, 1,500 on the census. Yes, there will always be people looking for a DD1, but they're also looking for other stuff as well. And then you have whatever's on the market versus the number of people ready and willing and able to buy a DD1 right now. There's people that want a DD1, they're not looking for it right now. But the people who are in the market for a Daredevil 1 versus the number that are on the market, it doesn't take much for that to drop because there's enough on the market. Yeah, there's a lot of people looking for it, but that 5,000 is a lot. I mean, yeah, I think that a drop in demand will cause that price to go down.
Well, I feel like when I was hunting for my Daredevil 1, it was slim pickings. It was a book that there was only 1 or 2 copies of anywhere you looked. And that was frustrating because then you're stuck with whatever condition is left available at that time. So I think the larger number of books in availability means that more people can potentially afford a copy because there'll be more variance in grades, which I think is a good thing, but probably only for people who are like me who are wanting to keep it and never get rid of it, not speculators.
Yeah, and there's also the thing that you can't just say how many people want a Daredevil 1. Yes, there will always be more than 5,000 people that want a Daredevil 1. But how many of those people are actively looking for one right now, and how many people are willing to pay a certain price for one right now? That brings that total number that want one way down, and then there's a very small percentage of that are actively looking for one and willing to pay current prices. And that's the demand pool that counts. There's going to be, 60 or 75,000 people that want a Daredevil 1, but that's not what counts. What counts is how many people are actively on the market to buy one and how many of them are willing to pay these prices. That's your demand pool. And that is not 5,000 people. That's less than, I don't know. It's whatever's on the market is equal to that right now because the prices seem stable at these levels, but that could change easily. That's all I'm saying.
Well, speaking of demand pool 2323, I think that well, I mean, there's a good example, right? So you got New Mutants 98, right?
Yeah.
There's no way that demand will exceed supply on that book. That's not going to happen. There's tons and tons and tons of them in mid and high grade. There's plenty for everyone to get one. A lot of them are still just laying around in dollar bins.
Yeah.
In flea markets probably more than in shop dollar bins, but still they're all over the place.
Yeah, and it's a
same thing with ASM 300. That book, there's a billion of those. You're not going to run out of those. ASM 252, you're not going to run out of those. Wolverine 1, even though there's a decent print run of that book, as far as it's not as high actually as some of the others, but like to Deadpool 2323's point, there were already people collecting Wolverine at that time. So at the time Wolverine 1 came out, that was already a collectible item. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah,
what concerns me is when I see books like X-Men 1, not, the 90s X-Men 1, right? X-Men, was it 1991 or whatever?
Yeah, 1991.
Yeah. When I see that book, right now there's a couple of 9.6s that are trending at like $65. That concerns me because I'm like, there is a crap ton of 9.6s out there, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
So for it to be, to me, that book in anything other than a 9.8, because it's the most printed book ever, there should be a huge jump from 9.6 to 9.8, and it should be like a skyrocket jump between the two. And the 9.6 should be barely worth the cost of grading. So, if you're grading a book for $30, that's what a 9.6 should cost you, $30 to $35. So to see another $30 thrown on top of that as profit, that concerns me a little bit because there's no way that 9.6 is going to hold that kind of value for as many of those books are out there.
Yeah, and it gets complicated too because it's layered because when we're talking about some of these modern books, Spawn 1, X-Men 1, New Mutants 98, some of that stuff. the demand, it has numerous layers to it. There's like for Spawn 1, how many of the people buying those are actually buying them for their collection? How many are buying them because they want to flip them when there's movie news? How many of them are buying them because it's hot and they're going to lose interest at some point and put it back out on the market? And then there's, how many people are looking for a 7.5 of a New Mutants 98? Like, what grades are selling too? I think on like X-Men 1 from 1991, 9.8 is where you want to be if it's like an investment type thing, because there's so many of them. You don't see strong demand for 9.6s. People will buy the 9.6s as long as they're cheap, but if that price goes up, people lose interest in 9.6s real quick. That keeps the 9.6 price on that down forever, pretty much. There's a lot of layers, and it's not easy to figure out what's going on. So yeah, I don't know the answers, but you just got to analyze it, and everybody will come up to a different conclusion. But there's a lot of layers to the demand for books. It's not just how many people want a New Mutants 98. It's how many of those people are trying to buy one to flip it. How many people are buying one for their collection? What grades do most people want? At what price points do the lower grades become more attractive? There's a lot to it. It's not easy to figure out. But this is what I spend my days and nights doing, and I don't still have any answers. So
that's very dedicated and honest of you, sir.
But I'll tell you, it's extremely fun to delve into this stuff, and it's more than just GPA. Go look at like what's available for sale. What are people in search of? What are the prices between different grades? It's really, really fun to delve into. I don't often come away with a definitive answer. I just have my opinions on stuff, and I get stuff wrong, but it's just really fun. And that's why people like this market. There's people that are like boo-hooing it. This sucks. Everything's too high. I think it's awesome. It's so much fun. There's so much intricacy to it. It's just such a fun and exciting market right now. And I understand you can't have everything you want, but that's just how everything is in life. But this market is just super fun right now. It's very exciting. It's hopping. It's like it's like a club on Friday night, and yeah, it's expensive, but it's super fun and there's a lot of action. So
just like a club on Friday night, how much action there is depends on when you get through the door. And and that's you could be picking up the sloppy thirds at 3:00. And, you got to put on 2 sets of beer goggles. And, it's a big difference is all I'm saying. So for me, I'm super excited. I love the current market. I love seeing the prices jump all over the place. It really gets me going because I get to watch my collection. And as a collector, not really a flipper or a seller, I get to watch the prices just bounce around every day and go, whoa, what is it worth today? Like I reset it every day and see what's it worth today. And it's so much fun to do that because I've been in the club for a while. And I've already settled into my spot, and I've got plenty of things to enjoy. But for someone who's just now getting into it, those are the boohooers. Those are the people who are like, oh, I really, who my new favorite character might be? Wolverine. Let me see what it costs to get all his appearances. Good luck. You gotta
work your way up no matter when you come in. So
yeah, but the level, the entry level, has taken a significant leap. And now there is a significant lifestyle or financial availability required to get into entry-level key collecting now that was not that way just a year ago. Or 6 months ago. And that's why those are the people I think that are crying the most, really. Look, Steve says, I'm Steve at I Love Disney as Comics. Sorry, I always call him Steve, and I promise you, if you type Steve in YouTube, you probably won't find this gentleman's channel because it's too vague. So, but Steve at I Love Disney and Comics says, I'm one of the boo-hooers. I can't buy as many cool oils as I would like to. Oils? Like snake oils? I don't know. Well, I'm sure he means well. Hey, look, Comic Mag Musing slipped in through the back door, which he's famous for in his neck of the woods. Man Cave Comics, he busts down the front door and says, amen to that, Bubs. Absolutely. That man's looking at his collection and just salivating. Holy moly. You even had Silver Age Dave sending off, tons of books
Ooh,
to
90.
CBCS and having a personal courier come and pick them up. And I think they even brought him a slice of pizza. Real nice fellows over there at CBCS. Can't afford that first appearance of Wolverine. Yeah, that Hulk 180. Yes, we know exactly what you mean. Books is what he meant by oils. Who knows what chats he's confusing. So good to see everybody. Yes.
Yeah, and so let me just say, when I say like the Boohooers, I'm not saying it in a derogatory manner. Look, I boohoo certain things too because there's books I want that are just out of reach. So whatever level you're at or whatever goals you have, this market has caused things to change drastically for everyone. And it just depends on what you're into. So when I say the Boohooers, I'm talking about anybody at any given point that is just salty about the market. And I've been there too, but I'm just trying to keep some optimism about it. And I'll try to move around and go different areas if I'm getting, pushed out of one area that's just crazy for me. I wanted Gem 83 last year. You guys know that. I've just given up. Yeah, I was salty about that. I was boohooing it last year when a 4.0 was like 7,500. And forget that. I just gave up on it. So I'll just go other places. So yeah, we all feel that because we're all in the market and the hobby. But you just got to find a place that you can make things work and just adapt to stay positive in it. If it stops being fun, then it's like, what's the point? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah. Absolutely. Roger, what do you think about what's going on in this wacky dare market as pertains to your collection? When you look at your collection, what does it do for you when you think about the market going on?
I'm kind of different than you guys, as you know, in that regard.
That's why I asked Roger.
Oh, gotcha. To me, it doesn't matter if the market goes down. That means I have access to comics that I don't have access to. If it goes up, I'll just do without. But I'm trying to be content where I'm at, and then if I add something, it just adds to the contentment. But if I can't get it, I'm not going to say boohoo. I never boohoo stuff like that, right? That's just not me, everybody. I wanted to get that ASM 121, 122 to sort of fill in my ASM collection, but you know what? I'll get a couple reprints thrown in there, and you know what? I'll be fine with that. But the market, the way it's going, the craziness, I can see why you're excited, right? Because it's almost like when you see the stock market and you have penny stocks, right? And you see that penny stock go up to like $1, and you're like, woohoo, because it's something that you bought for so little, and you had so little, expectation, and yet it really exceeded your expectation. So there's an excitement there. I get that. But to me, it doesn't really affect me. First of all, most of the comics I get are obscure stuff that most people don't even know exists, much less will spec on. So I'm okay with it. But the ones that I do want that are sort of more popular, that's not a big deal to me. I can always get alternatives.
That's fair. I agree with that. I think you just kind of have to know when to hold them. And, even for someone who doesn't sell very much, sometimes holding it just means holding on to your money. Hold on to your wallet, knowing, this isn't the time to be buying these things right now. And let's see what happens in a minute, Yeah,
I think it's always a good idea, no matter what you're trying to do in the hobby. I would encourage anyone to both buy and sell, to have both of those tools in your toolkit if you're going to be in the comic hobby. And sometimes you just need to sit tight and just save up, or just maybe you go through your collection and just maybe trim it or reorganize it. Like, you can do a lot with your collection without buying or selling stuff today. And then maybe you want to sell a couple things. Maybe you want to save up and then buy something else. Sometimes you just have to sit tight on the sidelines and sort of plan and enjoy what you have and sort of reorganize and set goals and just sort of plan out. And yeah, it's not as easy right now to be just buying and selling all over the place, because the buying part's really tough because it's expensive. But yeah, you can, you can sit tight, you can go slow, you can be deliberate, you can look for deals, you can still go hunting in the wild and find some deals. And if you're saving up for like $1,000 book and you have $750 and you're almost there, and you go out of yard sales or you're hunting at thrift stores or something, and you find some deals that you think you can flip and it's going to cost you $600. People are hesitant sometimes to do that because they're so close to that 1,000. Just push it out further, take the 600, reinvest it, flip it, maybe turn that into 800 or 900. You just have to be flexible and you have to adapt. And I think that's people are resistant to adapting and being flexible, whatever you're doing in the hobby, whatever level books you're at or how you're doing it. And if you're, resistant to that, then you're going to feel more salty about it. So sometimes you just it takes more time, or you just need to like put something on the back burner and move forward with a different plan in the meantime. But there's always something you can do. It's a very dynamic hobby. There's always something you can be doing, even if it's just in your comic room with the comics you currently own. You can rebag and board. You can get some pressed. You can send some out for grading and just have them ready. You can, you can reorganize. You can find, do I really want to sell this? Do I want to upgrade this? I mean, you can plan it out. And there's stuff you can do that's productive that doesn't require you buying and doesn't require you selling.
But you're talking again about what we were just talking about earlier, which is that's for people who already have amassed something of a collection that they can fiddle with. For someone who's got 2 short boxes or even 5 short boxes, there's less of that.
Well, yeah, I have fewer books than probably everybody in the chat right now.
Right, but you're still actively buying and selling.
Well,
if you're talking about taking a break from buying and just enjoying your collection in other ways, then it's difficult. Then other than just growing it, then it helps the larger collection you have, the more opportunity you have, I would think, naturally to enjoy it in various ways. That's true. Run collectors can sit down and read a whole run, and that's tons of enjoyment. Hey, we gotta acknowledge this Comic Mag Muses fella. Current comic market has caused a $1 reduction from his standard $3, but we're partying anyway, and we want to thank Bill over at Comic Mag Musings for all when he shakes it our way, we appreciate it. No, that's not right. But thank you anyway for joining us.
I have adapted in a way that, and this is not this year, this is over the last several years, and you guys have seen this in progress, weekly, really. I try not to get emotionally attached to books anymore. So when the going gets tough or whatever, I am okay selling almost anything. And I can just turn a profit and then buy something else. And I have just sort of changed my perception such that any books I own at any given time are all cool books that I love. Doesn't matter to me as much anymore what specifically those books happen to be on any day. And that makes it much easier for me. You see my Instagram, I've been picking up big books. I mean, these are not cheap books I'm picking up, but I don't have, I'm not rich. I'm selling other big books behind the scenes that I love, that I've had for a while. And that facilitates buying of new books. And I try not to get so attached. Now, there are some it's really impossible not to be attached because I just love them and I won't sell them. But it's less and less over time. And that makes it more fun for me rather than just holding everything that I like and then being salty that I can't ever get anything new. It's more fun for me to part with stuff I like, to get new stuff I like, and still sort of be in the game and make a little money on the side doing it. So that's sort of how I've adapted to some degree.
At least you're talking about loving books that you have so much that you don't want to get rid of them. And that's fine. And I know sometimes still you have to make the hard choices and some of those books end up leaving. But the hardest thing that I think, especially new collectors, but even seasoned collectors fall into this trap, and that is falling in love with a book you do not own. Mm-hmm. That if you have just desire, this pure love, and it's if I could only get this one book, my whole collection I'd be so happy. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, if you love it that much, are you willing to get rid of half your collection to get it? Oh, no, really? Okay, right. Then you want to take the whole cheerleading team to the prom. That's what you want.
That's what I'm saying.
You want the homecoming queen. You want the whole cheerleading team all with you in a big limo. Everybody, they're falling out of the windows and through the moon roofs, because you got to have it all. And I think that is a big problem for collectors, is just falling in love with something that they don't even own. Try falling back in love with some stuff that you used to love that you still have. And if you decide that you don't love it enough to keep it, then move it along and try and go after that one thing you don't have yet.
Well, ironically, the stuff that I have loved that I was really hesitant to part with, when I have parted with it and had a chance to get it again, I'm like, nah, I'm good. And then that's when you realize that you were not fully in love with it, that you couldn't part with it before, but you just didn't know that until after the fact. Like, there's books I've sold, and then I'm like, well, I'll get that back again because I love it. And then chances come up, and I'm like, yeah, no, I don't really want to pick that up again. I've had it. That's good enough. So.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you don't find that out until the time comes. That's kind of, it's hard to, to step out of yourself and decide that. It has to be an experience, I think. That's something. Look at this. Gore Vidal is dropping a bunch of interesting. Oh, well, let's get this one first. So Killing Joke was my most wanted book, and I sold things to get it. There you go. And Gore Vidal is saying at the grand opening. So he was talking, this is a third comment or so about recent shops. So at a grand opening of the shop, there was a raffle, and I won a graded Miss Marvel book. There was a gasp when I said it was my first graded book, and the customers couldn't believe it. I mean, everybody's going to collect something differently. That would be potentially one thing that he would not be able to do with it, or not want to do with his collection in the interim of the buying slow, is to slab. That's one thing I'm definitely doing. And I don't look at them. To me, this isn't a comic anymore. And I know
I'll be right back. I got somebody at the door. Okay, I'll be back.
Okay. And so, well, was that? Is it that early? Is he, what's? Oh my gosh, what's going on?
Yeah, he might be busy for a minute.
Oh yeah, he's gonna. Yeah, I think the total's 2 minutes. So, but I think when I think about these slabs, I love it's my new. I stole it from Silver Age Dave. He made it an off comment, encased in solid air. These books are now, and to me, they're not comics anymore. They're representative of comics, but they're like trading cards to me.
Yeah,
and that's where I started in the hobby, and that's where I am. So I like trading cards, and I'm converting comics that I've already read and have enjoyed and can read the stories other places into trading cards, and so that's fun for me. And I get to enjoy it in a different way,
And related to that, there's sort of like two camps of people. There's people that don't read their books, and I fall into that camp for the most part. Most of my books I don't read. Most of them I've never even had a chance to because I bought them slapped. But then there's people who sort of look at my camp and say, oh, you're not really in love with comics because you don't read them, and they have raws and they're reading their comics.
Yeah, that's kind of what Steve's saying here.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, there's one thing I point to is that the cover art, I feel like there are some people who don't fully accept the fact that the cover art is the most important thing in the world of comics. It is not the story, it is not the characters, it is the covers. The cover art is the most important aspect of comics. And now people are, I get hate mail for that, I'm sure, but even when you're getting that first appearance of whoever, nobody wants the coverless. You know what I mean? That's way cheap. No, you can't even dump it half the time. Nobody wants to touch it. You get a cover of your first appearance with a chunk missing off the cover. Nobody wants that. People, even when it's not about the cover, it's about the cover. You still want the cover, and you want a good-looking cover, and you want a nice shaped cover, and you want good colors on the cover. And sometimes it's only about the cover. And so it's very conducive to the whole trading card aspect that you're talking about, Bub, because that it really is the main aspect of comics. Yeah, they're fun to read. There's a lot of great stories and great characters and history too, but they work so well as trading cards because it presents the cover as a work of art, and that is, the key element of comics broadly across the entire hobby. I don't think that gets recognized enough. I know in my Golden Age circles, we fully embrace that because we don't even care what's in the inside most of the time. Bronze Age horror, pre-code horror, stuff like that. When you get into like the superhero books, I think people are in denial about it. They really are. And it's, still the key element is the cover. Yeah, you want the first appearance, but you don't want it with no cover. You know what I mean? Otherwise, the coverless copies would sell decent because you still would have all the important stuff. So I think that's not fully appreciated in a lot of areas of collecting in this hobby, I think. But that's why the trading card aspect is so popular and successful.
Yeah. I mean, that's where I'm at. That's what I love about it to me. And it truly is more tradable. I can take it. I can transfer it in. I mean, you remember, I don't know. Maybe I'm crossing streams here, but to me, when I was a kid, we had cards in our pockets. We had cards in our book bags. There were always random things. It was whatever you picked up at whatever store you bought. And the other kids at school didn't necessarily have the same access to card packs that, say, I did in my neighborhood shop. Because in New York City, you're not all in the same little spot, right?
Right. Yeah.
So we're coming over from different neighborhoods and different places with different access to different things. So when you got to the playground, it was like, hey, look what I got. Oh, look what I got. Oh, I've got a double of this. I'll trade you for that. I got, it really was a fluid exchange of stuff. And some of the things I really loved, but hey, he's going to give me 4 of those for this one.
Right.
I love it, but I'm going to let go of it because I want those other 4.
Yeah. And what Ruley Simeon is saying, there's some discussion here where Brett Bottomley disagrees. There's a lot of EC fanatics. It's all about the stories. All right, yeah, and then Unruly says EC is the best of both worlds. Yeah, here's the point. All of the books are about the cover. Some are also about the interiors. There are no books where it's only about the interior. That's what I'm saying. It's either about the cover or the cover and the interior. It's never only about the interior. That's sort of how I feel about. There's exceptions to every rule, but I feel like that's a pretty rock solid rule that is not really embraced by a lot of people in the hobby. They don't believe me. They won't accept it. But
wait. That's a logical leap right there. That's a logical leap from they won't believe you to they won't accept it. It could be that it's not true.
Well, it's possible, but I mean, look. I mean, this is just how I view it. It's my opinion, but I mean, some people will disagree. But mostly what I try to do, I don't try to change minds. I just try to stimulate thought. And if I get people thinking about it like they are in the chat, then I've done my job. And, that's my opinion on it. And some people maybe wouldn't have thought of it that way. And they're like, DS, you got a point, but you're flat wrong. And that's fine. But EC collectors, yes, they love the stories, and I don't blame them. They're awesome. That's the Cadillac of pre-code horror. But I don't know any EC collectors that are looking for coverless copies on the cheap. They are looking for good, presentable copies, and the covers on that. Look, I'm well versed in pre-code horror. EC books, the covers are key. They're a crucial element of those books. So when you want the EC books, because of the interiors, you want one that has a very presentable cover. And those artists are renowned and famous in pre-code horror. And yeah, so it's cover and story for EC books. Some books is only about the cover, but I don't really know any books where it's only the interior. People still want a good cover. Nobody wants the Hulk 181s. You see those Hulk 181s out there, super faded all the way out. Yeah. They don't move. It's people aren't jumping on them. They have to sell them for cheap. And it's because the cover is no good. It's
also because it's the second appearance of Wolverine, but we won't get into that.
Yeah, it's that too. Well, I'm not going down that rabbit hole today.
Well, what about this book? Wait, Roger, are you back?
No,
Roger's been abducted by aliens, I think. He's having testicular difficulties. I don't know. We'll see if we can get that fixed in about 3 minutes. All right. So what about this book? So this book, they had some casting announcements today. I think it was today about Submariner getting cast. A lot of people are fussy about the casting, but that happens every time. And so now this book's taking a jump. Not this particular book on account of the color of the label, but I believe it would sell better in a CBCS. In my opinion, if you have a purple or a green label, you should crack that slab and send it to CBCS for a blue label.
100%.
That's my opinion. Avoid all colored labels and move it over there if your intent is to sell it. I probably won't sell this, so I'm happy to have it just the way it is. I had to beg somebody out of it and then pay full price, but now finally, it's worth what I paid for it, maybe. So, but what do you think about that? What do you think about this? People have known for years that Submariner, it was only a matter of time before they brought him in. And I feel like with Aquaman kind of jumping the gun or the shark to get there just before Submariner, I think, was important as well. I think it postponed a little bit of Submariner talk.
Yeah, it's possible. I don't think anybody has any confidence in DC movies at this point. So I think, Marvel keeps track of what DC's doing. DC has some Aquaman stuff going. So Marvel just sat back to watch the dumpster fire. And when that fire burns out, they'll have a nice Submariner thing going. They don't look when DC movies. I mean, they don't know what the hell they're doing. I don't know what's up with them, with the amount of money they have, and the characters they have. I mean, my God, they have freaking awesome characters in comics, and they're just trashing them every time on the big screen. But Marvel knows what they're doing, and so they just sit back and wait. I mean, you don't want to go compete and mix it up with that. Just let them do their thing, and when they burn it out, then you get something good. So yeah, I think probably Aquaman, they probably tabled the whole Submariner thing because of Aquaman and just let that burn out. And now they're going to go with Submariner, and it's going to be all about Submariner. And it'll be awesome because it's Marvel. Yeah, but I mean, Aquaman is just as good in the comics as Submariner in the comics. I mean, there's, not one is better than the other. But when you get into the movies, Marvel will do a way better job.
I guess I'm always hoping for the wrong things. So when it comes to the movies, because whoever's at Marvel does a better job than I do at coming up with storylines. But to me, I would like them to have done a prequel type Submariner story, take him back to Schomburg days, give us a nice Golden Age Human Torch and Submariner story together. Like, to put him into a Black Panther sequel, I think I don't like that. I think that's stupid. Personally.
Yeah, I think it's sort of like, I don't know, they have everything so intertwined in the MCU. It's almost like a starter role to see how it plays, and then they, give them their own movie. But look, I think their plan is, it's the Silver Age up through the Copper Age type stuff is what they're doing on the MCU. They don't really delve into the Golden Age very often, except when you get like Captain America and they do his origin and stuff. But, there are some, like the Invaders. I think at some point they'll do an Invaders movie, and that will just be, after they've had a Torch for a while, after they've had Submariner, a few movies, they'll do like an Invaders movie, and it'll be full on Golden Age. But I feel like they like to develop these characters and give them, get them some love out there on the screen before they go full on sometimes with these characters. I don't know. I mean, they have the long view of it at the MCU. They're looking like 20, 30-year time spans for movie parks. They're not just doing one-offs. So, I mean, they've probably planned this stuff out for the next 10 to 12 years at least. So, I mean, we think they're just doing a Submariner in this movie. But for them, they're like, well, let's do this, and then we'll do this with Submariner, and then we'll have them in this movie, and then we'll do this team. They're thinking like 10 moves ahead, I guarantee it.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah, I agree. That I'm sure that they are. I just personally, I would like to seen a Golden Age Human Torch. I would even let them have what's that, Toro? Go ahead and put in Toro. Go ahead and put in what was Submariner's little kid? Fish Face.
I don't know.
Gilboy.
Knights is in the chat. He'll know.
Yeah, he's in there somewhere. He may have given up already on this topic.
The only thing about Submariner that worries me on the big screen is, I mean, I'm not going to say, I don't know, this might come out wrong. There's not a lot you can do with them, if that makes sense. I mean, he doesn't even have a costume. It's just like, I don't know. I have confidence they'll make it exciting, but I'm trying to think, what can they do with it? I'm like, there's not a whole lot you can do with this character, but I know they will. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with him, but it doesn't.
That's why I want to see him tearing up U-boats.
Yeah, I think that would be cool. I mean, yeah, I don't know.
Look, he didn't have a sidekick, he says. Now, I don't think that's true. I think it was Charlie Tuna was the sidekick of Submariner.
Yeah, what I'm really saying, look, Submariner has a ton of awesome villains.
Gilbert.
Awesome. So if they get Submariner, some of his villains in there, he's got some really cool villains.
Yep. Wow. So Patrick Wall saying that he likes DC TV series better. That they finally got Superman right. That as a CW show is finally doing something right. That's good. I think it's interesting though. When I saw that, and you'll have to forgive my lack of knowledge on this one, but what's the first appearance of Doomsday in Superman books? It was in the 90s, whatever.
Yeah, I can't remember.
So Doomsday was going to be featured, and it was no surprise because we all knew, Superman was going to die, right, in the movies. So Doomsday was going to be featured as one of the main villains of Batman v Superman, right? And yet, that book didn't move. Like, that was $1 book, and now it's up to like $15.
Yeah, well, I mean, what he was in the last 15 minutes of the film? You know what I mean?
I know, but it just shows what a botched job that is.
Yeah.
That you took, one of, the only villain to successfully kill Superman at that time, then anyway. And, you have a whole movie that's going to culminate in this big, massive event of him, dying. And you botched it up so bad that the book doesn't move. Like, no one even cares that that's going to happen. That's terrible.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why, when the DC announces a movie, I mean, I don't even, at this point, I don't even think there's any spec value to any of those books.
And it's TLAT.
I wouldn't even waste my time figuring out what they're going to do and then buying the books. It's just, there's not really any spec value for DC books. And it's not because the DC books are bad. And, and this gets lost in this market too. Like, look, there's a clear divide, and Marvel books are red hot and skyrocketing, and DC books aren't. But DC books aren't in the dumps. DC books are doing what all the books did forever. They go up slowly over time, and they're good investments, and they, go up. But Marvel's taking it to a new level with the movies, that it's not that the movies are giving the specific books spec value. That's not it. It's that the MCU is a pop cultural phenomenon that is just making a brand awareness for Marvel that DC doesn't have in pop culture. It far transcends comics with Marvel. And so when you have people in comics or coming into comics, they're coming in looking for Marvel, or they're coming in because of Marvel. And that is causing the Marvel books to be so much more valuable lately than the DC books. It's not that they're better books. I mean, DC books are still good. They'll go up in value over time. But Marvel, the MCU is such a phenomenon that it's like a brand awareness. It's like Coca-Cola. And at this point, it's like when people who aren't even in comics think of comics, they think of Marvel and they think of the Avengers movies. That's what's going on. And, I don't see DC changing anytime soon, because every time they do a movie, it's worse than the last one. And I watch all of them.
I would think you'd love them.
I don't know what the deal is with them. I mean, I can't even figure it out. Like, I watch them now and I'm like, why is this movie bad? It seems to have all the elements there. I don't know. First of all, the humor in the Marvel movies is so witty and sharp and on point, and that makes it so fun. Even the darkest moments in the movie have levity, and it's such a good balance, and it's just so well done. DC doesn't have that, and when they do have humor, it's terrible. It's not funny. And then, the darkness, it's not just about being dark. You have to sort of, I don't know how to explain it, but the Marvel movies have a darkness it's anthemic. Where the DC movies, it's just your typical movie evilness. It's not anything bigger than that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I don't know. And the special effects, I think they both have access to the same special effects. The actors, I mean, Marvel's obviously paying more for their actors. They're getting much higher quality acting for sure.
Yeah, and they're investing. They're investing in actors and signing them to long-term contracts. DC just seems to pick up whoever's on the trash heap and signs them to whatever. They're like, we want to make a movie with this guy. We want to get this actor, put him in a movie. Where can we make him fit? As opposed to really casting for the role.
Well, who was the villain in Wonder Woman 1984? Who was that actor? The actor? I don't even know who the character was, but
I never seen it.
The new Wonder Woman that came out like 2 months ago or whatever.
I haven't seen it.
Worst actor ever. I mean, it was so terrible.
For who? For that played the bad guy?
Yeah, the bad guy in the Wonder Woman.
That was Pedro Pascal, I think, the guy who's the Mandalorian.
I don't know the names of these people, but
he had like a mustache or something.
No. Maybe he wasn't the main villain, but he was. Yeah, he was the main villain in the last Wonder Woman movie.
Oh, I don't know. Oh, that little twerp. Yeah. I don't know.
But yeah, then you get the villains in the Marvel movies are awesome. They're big time actors. The acting's good. The scripts are good. The directing is good. Yeah, I don't know. It's just like pick anything about a movie and Marvel's doing it better.
Yeah. It's really bad. I think that
Maxwell Lord, Jackson Roy Kirk, Maxwell Lord. That actor is so flat. I don't know who that guy's been in other stuff or whatever, but terrible.
Oh, I don't know.
And Cheetah, look, Marvel doesn't follow the comics per se. I mean, they're not like they'll go off the Marvel stories and they won't stick literally to the comics. And then DC has the Cheetah in that same Wonder Woman movie, which is literally right out of the comics from the 1940s. Okay, it doesn't work. It's cheesy. Okay, it's total cheeseball. That's not good for the big screen for a major movie. It's terrible. Marvel adapts things to make them more modern and cool. And then DC's pulling stuff literally off the pages of a 1940s Wonder Woman book, and that's your Cheetah? Are you kidding me? And then they don't even show her until the last 15 minutes of the film, and she looks like she's a kid in a Halloween costume. It's terrible.
I've not seen it. I can't trash it too bad. I mean, going by the reviews, most people agree with you, but see now, Brett Bottomley, now we got to be careful with Brett. Now he'll let loose. And Joker was an all-time great movie in his opinion, and a lot of people in the chat so far have disagreed with that. I didn't watch it. I was turned off by all the advertising. Nothing about it seemed like a movie I wanted to watch, and I'm not a big villain fan. Like the Venom movie was okay, but for the most part, I like to see hero movies with villains in them. Whenever they take a villain movie and try and play it off as some kind of hero or reluctant hero or something like that, I tune out. I don't really like any of those movies ever. So some people loved it. Some people didn't. I think some people appreciate it for a movie on its own, not necessarily a DC comic book movie, but just as a movie,
So, the Joker movie was not – I think a lot of people went into that as MCU fans looking for a movie about the Joker, and it wasn't that. It was more like Taxi Driver with Robert De Niro. It's more like what it was. It was loosely based on the Joker from the DC movies, but Marvel fans, comic book fans went in to see that. They had expectations of watching a comic book movie, and it really wasn't that. It was sort of semi-loosely based on the Joker. It was based on the Joker, obviously, but it wasn't a comic book movie at all. It was more of it was like Taxi Driver. It wasn't like a comic book movie. So I went into it.
Call that movie Bozo, and it still would have had so many people watching it, or did it have to be the Joker?
Yeah, I think it could have been called I don't even think it needed to be called the Joker. It didn't seem like it was about the Joker to me. I mean, it was loosely connected, but I thought it was a good movie. But I wasn't I guess the previews made it look like it really wasn't a Batman Joker movie.
Yeah.
It was and it wasn't. And so I thought it was good. I mean, yeah, it was a good movie, but it wasn't a comic book movie. It wasn't a movie about the Batman Joker, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with Jackson. All the make a movie about a villains, they all fall flat for me. And the whole time I'm thinking, where's the hero? Why hasn't he come in and saved the day yet? This is ridiculous. It's like the worst comic book story ever that only follows the villain and the hero never shows up. That just pissed me off.
Yeah, I agree with Kavi. Joker was great, but if you're expecting it to be a Batman movie, it's not going to be good. But if you're just watching a movie like you watch a Taxi Driver with Robert De Niro, it's that kind of movie. It was really intense and it was good. It was a quality movie. It's just not a comic book movie.
Yeah, and I agree with that. It can be a great movie too, but that doesn't mean I got to go see it.
Yeah, it's like if Christopher Nolan would do more DC movies, it would probably help because the Batman movie that Christopher Nolan made with the Joker in it was almost not a comic book movie because it was so intense and so realistic right from the opening scene with the sound and the music and the Joker breaking into the bank and then escaping in the school buses. I mean, that movie was so intense. It was almost just like an awesome crime movie. You almost forgot you're watching a comic book movie. That's how good it was. But that's Christopher Nolan, and he's not doing them now. So,
yeah. Makes sense to me. Roger, you still there? Or Roger, man, he ended up getting a package he didn't expect, huh?
Yeah. So what else? We're supposed to do Q&A. Is there anything else in the chat you saw?
Yeah, anybody got a question? Well, we've already run through all the questions that people sent me before the show because they didn't get any. I know that my audience is, whatever. We did the best we could. But yeah, I mean, anybody got any questions? We'll ask Roger. Poor Roger, man. He got a knock at the door. He hasn't been back since. You think some lady showed up with a picture of a big mustachioed kid and is like, you owe me 25 years of back support.
Yeah, right? That would be something. We're asked questions, comics, buddy. Comics.
Yeah, comics. Any comics.
Yeah, so here Seawood's saying it, the Joker reminded him of Logan. I watched Logan. That movie, I feel the same way as Seawood did about that. It's like after you watch it, I felt terrible. It's not how I want to see Wolverine treated, and it's just like I don't know. That movie was hard to watch. It's so bad at the end. It's like so difficult. Just that's not Wolverine. I mean, he's always salty, but he's salty in sort of like he's happy to be salty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's a salty dog, and he's happy to be that way. But in Logan, he was just a sad sack that felt sorry for himself, and it wasn't fun to watch. I know they're trying to introduce the new character in that movie, and I mean, I think Marvel realized that when people want Wolverine, we don't want Wolverine to age. We just want the Wolverine. It's a comic book. They should just stay the same. It's not real. They always should be Wolverine should be Wolverine. We don't need him getting old and getting hurt and limping around and being injured and weak. Nobody wants that. We want Wolverine. He's a badass with an attitude. That's what we want. We don't ever want that to change. And when they try to change it and make them evolve, then that pulls it out of the comic book realm and starts making it too real. And then we're like, what the hell did you just do to our hero? You know what I mean? That's how I felt about Logan.
Yeah. I liked the Logan movie. I was glad to have, but I've read a lot of Wolverine stories, and when you go through his entire catalog of work, there's a lot of stories like that. Like he's not always just, happy to have a chip on his shoulder. He's pretty down on himself in a lot of the stories. They're not my favorite stories, but it does happen a lot.
Yeah.
And so I'm okay. And they pull him and put him in so many different universes and situations and out of time and place that I took it as a standalone. Actually, that would have been great if that was the last X-Men movie that they made. That would have been fine. A nice fitting end to the whole Fox X-Men group of movies. But then they had to keep going make more crap.
Logan.
Hey,
Roger.
Hey, yeah, I'm back.
Hey.
I'm back.
What are you going to name the kid, Roger?
Oh, no, man. Sorry. I'm working for my brother-in-law, and he has a cabinetry business. And we had a delivery, and the truck broke down for hours. We thought it was coming tomorrow. It came tonight. So we had to get the delivery in. So sorry about that.
Wow. That happens. Here, this is a great question we've got coming. You've missed the last 7 questions, Roger.
So sorry. So
now you have to watch the rewind on that.
I will.
So we didn't miss much, Roger. I bashed DC movies for about 10 minutes, and then I bashed Wonder Woman movie for a few minutes. I bashed the Logan movie, and then I
like the Logan movie.
And I thought the Joker was good, and that was that.
Oh, you see, I the best parts.
Brett Bottomley's got a great question.
Yeah.
And it's perfect for Roger. Here's a question. Is the time coming when some keys become too valuable to keep? What do you think, Roger?
That depends on your perspective. For me, I mean, I've had my 180 and my 181 for almost 40 years now. And I've had some financial downturns, and that would be like if I'm selling those comics, you know that it's pretty much death is the next level, you know.
Yeah.
So I mean, to me, it just depends on what kind. Like DS was saying, what kind of collector are you? Are you somebody who wants to hold it for a while and then make a profit, flip it to buy other things, or are you emotionally invested in your comics like I am? Well, way too emotionally invested, and to the point where I don't give them up unless it's a dire situation.
Yeah.
Well, I have an idea. I'll share it with DS after the chat. What do you think, DS?
Always down to hear what you.
Yeah, it's a business proposition that works loosely based on this concept, but I think that what happens is people don't necessarily feel a time market-wise where things are too expensive to hold on to, but they experience personal financial hardships that make those books too expensive. And that can happen at any time. That could have happened 4 years ago, depending on which books you had.
Yeah.
But now there's more external pressures. DS can attest to when Mrs. DS might want a car or something, and she's looking at it. DS is like, "Oh, we don't really have money. Let's fix a flat. It'll be fine." And she's like, "Look, I'm looking in your little man room, and I see 2 or 3 things hanging on the wall. Thanks for educating me. That tells me that they could buy me a nice new car." So it makes it, there's external or there's internal pressures inside the home, I think, in your own finances that will probably mean more than whatever the market's doing. But, high value to your collection is always going to be tempting to sell if your personal finances are struggling. I think that's kind of where it's at,
Yeah, I think that's right. This ties into a concept I talk about a lot that I don't ever hear talked about. It's called apparent rarity, and this has a lot to do with prices on the market, because sometimes a book is rare because it's just rare, and sometimes it's rare because none of them come to market because the people who own them aren't willing to part with them at the current prices. But when prices reach it, you got to be careful if you're paying up for a book that has apparent rarity as an investment, because as that price rises, inevitably it reaches a point where people feel, yes, it is worth parting with that book now. And a lot of people will part with it. We saw this happen with Mask 1. We saw this happen with Black Cat Mystery 50, that classic pre-code horror cover. When I was in the market for one of those like 3.5, 4 years ago or whatever, you couldn't find a copy anywhere. And then it took one person to sort of put theirs out there, and it sold for way higher than anybody thought it would. And then somebody else is like, oh, well, if it's that much, I can part with it. And then more people start parting with it, and come to find out, it's really not that hard to find. You see them routinely now. I think, look, at a certain point, the value of a book gets competition from the value of something else in your life that money can do. And for everybody, there's a point. Like, if a 181 in whatever condition Roger has becomes a $2.5 million book, I guarantee Roger will sell it. And if he won't,
wait. We can't let that guarantee go past until we hear from Roger.
Yeah.
Roger, is that a true guarantee? $1.5 million for, let's go ahead, say for both. 1.5 million for your 180 and 181. Is that a deal?
Oh man, you guys are killing me.
See what I'm saying?
I gotta think it over. I'm sweating like a bullet right now for that question.
Here's the bigger question: is it even your decision at that price? At what point does your collection become our collection when the value hits that number?
Yeah, if my wife got a wind of that, that would be sold like right now.
Yeah. So it's just a matter of, as the price goes up, more and more people, it hits that point for more and more people as the price goes up. And then there's that last holdout, and that's the Rogers of the collecting world, that are the final holdouts at a certain price point. And, we haven't reached that yet, but on some books we've reached that, and, other books are not close to it. But, there's pressure within, the relationship or the family or the household too, because Sometimes Mrs. DS wants something. I'm like, no, we don't have the money. And she's like, yes, we do. We have all these comics that you're sold. I was like, oh, no. I have the money, but we don't have the money. So yeah, at a certain point, the I becomes a we. And when it becomes life-changing amounts, then yeah, a lot more stuff gets out on the market as the prices go up. You know, I know people who have books 2 years ago, they're like, this is my grail, I'll never sell it. And now it's on the market and they're selling it. And they're getting like 15, 20 grand off a book that they paid like $2,000 for. Yeah, I mean, of course, at a certain point, it becomes worth it.
Yeah, let me just say, guys, you guys really put me in the spot with that one. But I guess my Hulk 181's about an 8.5 or so, because you know the story. Not my original. I found it for $1 in a mall back in the early 80s. I hope it doesn't get to that point, guys. Does that make sense to you? I hope I don't have to make that decision.
Yeah. No, it's bittersweet. I do that on a weekly basis, Roger. I mean, I sold this year my Weird Mysteries 5 in a 5.0. I'll never get another copy like that. That was one of my favorite PCH books. I sold my Starling Comics 49 recently too. I didn't publicize it because I was in mourning. It was bittersweet. But I mean, look, these are books that I love. Like Starling 49 is one of my favorite books. I plan to get another one. That's how I sort of rationalized it. But with the price, I was all right with it. Yeah, I mean, I'm a little easier at doing it than some people, and not as easy as some other people. But you know, as prices go up, more and more people reach that point, and more books come on the market.
Sure,
it's a good thing, because otherwise, if nobody ever wants to part with anything, there would not be a comic market, because nothing would be for sale.
Yeah, good point. Absolutely, great point. I mean, you're right.
Yeah.
I know I'm like a dinosaur when it comes to those things, but you know, to me, it's like it's guys. I'm telling you, it's so difficult for me to part with certain things because I've had them for so long. It's almost, I know they're just things. I know they're inanimate objects, but they have such, you know, intrinsic value to me personally, maybe not to others, right? But to me personally, that it's hard for me to part with that.
Yeah.
But I see what you mean. I mean, if everybody held on to things like I did, you know, it would not be a fun market, because I would never be able to get stuff because unless other people let go of it. So
and I think a lot of people mistake the fact that I sell a book I love and it means I don't love comics. No, I absolutely love comics as much as anyone.
Oh yeah, I know.
That's why I devote so much time to them. And the way I devote to it is different than the way a lot of people do, but it doesn't mean you love them any less. So the buying and the selling is the part of the hobby that is, you know, involved with the passion that people have for comics. You know, 8.5 Hulk 181 is probably like an $8,000 book right now. You know, that's not worth it for Roger. That's not a life-changing amount. But, you know, maybe next year it's 15,000. Maybe 10 years from now, it's a $100,000 book. You know what I mean? At some point, Roger will have to really consider, you know, other things he wants to do with his life, what that money can be used for. And a lot of people reach a point where they're like, you know, I've had this book for a long time. I've really enjoyed it. It's time to pass it on and do something else with the funds, comic related or otherwise. And, you know, the books I parted with, I miss them, but I still have the memories of them. And it's still like, I used to own that, and it's almost as satisfying because you did have it. So I miss the books, but I still have them with me, sort of.
In memory.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I collect books and I collect memories of books, basically.
All right. Here's a great question. Do you guys have insurance in your collections? Well, is he hanging outside? Of course, this hits home for me because I'm in the insurance industry for a profession. So to me, yes, I have insurance on my collection. I recommend everybody does. If it reaches, say, and it's a personal number, but you know what I tell clients is if it's tough. Some clients are very, they're sticklers, but if I have a reasonable person, I tell them, look, how much would you take for your collection? And they're like, oh, you know, what would it take? What would it take for you to buy back all the best parts of your collection that you'd be so devastated if it all just went up in flames? You know, how much would it take for you to be happy with the amount that someone gave you? I said, don't look at it as buying your collection, because some people are like, well, I wouldn't take this much for my collection. There's a difference, because when someone looks at buying your collection, you always want to make a profit, right?
Right.
But the point of insurance is not to make a profit. The point of insurance is to make you whole again when something bad happens. So what would it take to make you whole again if you went back to truly buy back every book that you really care about in your collection? What would that amount be? You to buy it back and then still own it, not take the money and run. And when they give me that number, if that number is over $5,000, I say you need to insure your collection. That's my simple number right there at $5,000, because you could work for $5,000. You could amass $5,000 in lots of different ways. Most people can. But once it starts getting to that, 7, 8,000, 10,000, 15,000, 20, 30 and upwards, you're going to be hard pressed to come up with all those books, first of all, that you'll probably have to rebuy just to get them. And there's a lot of work involved to recreating a collection as well. So, that's, I have insurance on mine. I track the values on all my slabbed books, and that's really what I gauge it by. I have a very, very small portion of my books that are graded, but that portion is the highest pure dollar value. And when I get more books that are worth more, I'm looking to get those slabbed as well, at least graded, so that I can present an accurate amount of what that value is of that book is, as best as I can.
Yeah, for me, insurance, I have insurance on my collection, obviously. I think I use American American Insurance Company or American Collectibles.
Yeah, something like that.
Insurance or something.
That's one of the two big boys. There's two big boys in the industry, and that's one of them.
Yeah. So, and look, I have books that are not replaceable. It's not for me a matter of what do I need I can rebuy these books. I mean, I have books you're not going to be able to rebuy. There's if I sell or lose at some of these books, I'll never get another copy. There just aren't enough out there for Golden Age type stuff. But yeah, when they're slabbed, it's much easier to assess the value of them. And then for my insurance company, basically anything over $2,000 in value, I have to specifically itemize, and I put a value on it. Now, the value I put on it is higher than what it is currently valued in the market. And the reason is I don't have to worry about changing it again next month if the book goes up in value. I just overvalue them. It doesn't really matter. It's just how much insurance do I want to purchase to cover it. So I figure out for myself how much money, and this is investment for me. It's like a portfolio. So I want to get how much money do I want to insure these for, and I pick the amount, and then I can put this is worth $1 million, whatever. I mean, they'll take it and they'll be like, all right, $1 million worth of insurance is this much.
Yeah.
If the place burns down or they get stolen or whatever, then I have to go through with them, and they will go on the market and determine what's the value of these books, and that's how you determine the value. But I don't undervalue them. I make sure I overvalue everything, and I pay for more insurance than I need, because some of these books are not going to be easy to price if I have to go back and forth with the insurance company, because they're just not. I have to get opinions from professionals to satisfy them that a book is a certain value. But the deductible is another thing people have brought up. I have the higher your deductible is, the less your cost is going to be, because most incidents are going to fall within the deductible, and you just have to pay out of pocket for them. So I have a deductible that I think anything that happens within that amount, I can cover out of pocket, and it won't really affect me too much, and it keeps the cost down. And that kind of stuff is like if you send stuff out for grading and it gets lost or destroyed, or something gets stolen from you at a con, that I don't need insurance to cover every little single incident. My insurance for me is to cover a total loss of the collection if that were to happen. So I have my deductible higher than some people might prefer to have it. And I'm fine paying out of pocket and dealing with small issues here and there. But the insurance for me is just to cover a mass loss of everything. And I overestimate the value on everything. I pay for enough so that I'm covered. And the books that are 2,000 or more, that I declare that are 2,000 or more, I specifically itemize. And everything else, I just basically need to prove that I own it, like raw books, which is another reason I post almost everything I get on Instagram. That's a good record of when I bought stuff and what I've owned. Right. So, if I pick up some raw books that are worth $5, I put them on Instagram, there's a record now that I own those books. And yeah, so Instagram is a good way to sort of make a record of what you own, and you can go back through and figure out what was lost and prove that you owned it, because look, I bought this on this date, and you can match it up with a PayPal transaction or whatever. There's a picture of it, and you have a great description like, hey, picked up a VF Secret Wars 8, you know what I mean? And then you go back, I had a VF Secret Wars 8, that's $100 or whatever.
I agree. Kavi says he uses collectibles insurance services because they ensure market value. That's very key. That's one of the main reasons why I chose them as well. That's who I use, collectible insurance services. And trust me, I went through the gambit. Even some of the smaller companies that are not as well known, because sometimes in insurance, people always think, you go with the bigger company, but the bigger companies often have larger exposures, and everyone else pays the premium for those larger exposures. So sometimes in insurance, a smaller company that's still solvent and reliable is the better way to go for a cheaper rate and for better service too. But in any case, and for just a solid product. But for them, Collectibles Insurance did a couple of things that I liked. One of the things that they did that the other insurance company doesn't do is that you can blanket a collectibles tier. So I can have ever so much of my collection can be parsed out. So I have a total amount, but then I say, yeah, but take 10% of that and put that towards statues and action figures. So I can do that. Then I say, 5% towards my record collection. Okay, well, I can do that. So I can take my overall amount and take portions of it and put it out towards other collections that I have all on the same policy, because chances are if something happens to one, it's happened to all of them. My comic collection, my gun collection, my figures and statue collection, and my record collection are all here in the comic room. So if something happens to this room, I lose all those collections at once. So I wanted to have a policy that I was able to turn in one claim and not deal with 3 different policies and 3 different companies to get all that settled for what's likely a single occurrence. So that was another reason. Also, the price was good. It wasn't as low. It's a little bit higher generally than the other insurance company. I think it's American. I can't remember. It's the one DS is talking about. And the price is a little higher, but I got them to do a little bit of a price match with the other one. So I got a quote from both. And then I said, hey, match or come close to their price. And they came real close. So I was like, all right, there it is. American Collectors. So it's ACI and CIS. Those are the 2 main ones. And it's funny because CGC is in bed with ACI and CBCS is in bed with CIS. So it's funny that they chose different insurance companies to partner up with. I find that interesting. But in any case, that's why I went that route. And also, it's like DS said, he kind of just trivially mentioned that you can cover your books as they go to and from, pressers or to and from graders or anything like that. If you're getting any kind of service work done in the books, that adds up, because when I ship a book that I'm going to have work done on, I do a lot of my own work, but let's say I'm going to get a book slabbed, then I don't have to pay an extra $30 in insurance at the U.S. Postal Service. I can just insure it for the minimum $50 value and let it fly, because I know it's still covered under my other collectibles insurance policy. And if you add up those $30 over the course of the year of me sending out books, it more than pays for the premium. So it's an even swap, or I'm saving money and I get full collection insurance. It's just a win for me. And it took me a while to settle on them. I tried them all out. I talked to underwriters. I talked to everybody there was. Talked to claims departments and asked them, give them hypotheticals. I've been in the insurance business for 15 years, man. I ran them through the ringer. they were loving it, I'm sure.
Yeah, so when I send stuff off, I generally still put insurance, if it's a big item, through the post office, because I'm trying to avoid what happened with Knights and what I've heard happen with other people. I don't want to make a claim if at all possible. So look, there's carrying costs for this collection of assets, basically. And for me, those costs are the cost of the insurance, which I solely use for a total loss. The other stuff, I will use post office insurance, stamps.com insurance, or whatever. But if I buy a book and somebody sends it to me uninsured, as long as I have a signature confirmation on it, I can cover it with my insurance before I even receive it. As long as I can prove that I bought it and it was lost in transit, it's covered. Only collectibles I have are comics, but and I'm not going to go into how much it is, but I mean, look, it's worth it if you have valuable books, because I think I'm paying, several $100s a year total for my insurance, and it's well worth it. It's peace of mind, and it covers a total loss. And then I try not to rely on that for small things here and there. I'll use post office insurance, or I'll cover my own. Like, I had an issue with CGC, and I worked it out with them, and I could have made a claim and got more money, but I didn't want to make a claim with my insurance company and risk having to lose that policy and have to go somewhere else, where I could just work it out with CGC, maybe get a little less money. So I'm not trying to do nickel and dime type transactions through my insurance. It's just for a total loss. Is how
like Knights of Old is talking about a bad experience he had where that same CIS dropped him, but he thankfully he's very clear about why they dropped him. I didn't mention that because I did say that when they're covering books in shipping, they're covering it to and from work getting done on my books. When I sell a book, I use U.S. Postal Service to insure it to value with signature confirmation and all that good stuff, because these insurance policies that I'm talking about and Kavi's talking about and DS is talking about, that's not for selling books. That's for your personal collection if something happens to your personal collection. But if they, and this goes for any of the insurance companies, if they determine that you are trying to have what they call stock insurance, which is what a dealer would carry for if something happened to his inventory, then that is not what you're supposed to be insuring. And they'll ask you that, or they should, if you have a good agent, will be asking you that during the interview process, the application process. Do you sell books often? Are you trying to insure books that are in transit through your collection? And that's not really what it's for. It's really for stuff that's your PC,
My insurance, and I've gone back and forth with my insurance, and we're on the same page. We see eye to eye on this, me and my agent. And he knows I sell books and that I also buy new books, and my PC's ever changing, but I'm not a dealer. And when I buy new books, I send him a new inventory list and I say, hey, I sold these and I bought these, and these are new additions. And he's like, okay, I'll update it and get that sent out to you. So it changes what's covered, but it doesn't. I'm allowed to sell books, and it doesn't violate my policy. I'm not,
of course, yeah.
But but this is what I'm saying. I don't even want to get into it. Like when I ship books back and forth, either I buy them and they're coming to me, or I sell them and I ship them out. I try not to even involve my insurance company in that. I would just cover it out of pocket and use.
Yeah, I don't either.
But it's a good backstop if you buy, which I haven't done, but like a $40,000 book and it gets shipped to you, and they didn't put enough insurance on it. As long as you have signature confirmation on it, if it gets lost or destroyed in transit or something, I can claim it with my insurance company. But I try to avoid having any of that stuff even go towards my insurance for me in my mind is only for total loss. Everything else I just deal with on a as is basis, per incident that happens. And I've had a few incidents that I could have claimed, but I didn't go to my insurance company about them.
Well, that's a good client. Knights of Old says, just don't ever try to get covered through homeowners or renters insurance. That's 100% true. Yeah. The allotted values that they give you wouldn't pay for one book in DS's collection, not one. So that includes the free ones I've sent them over the years. It wouldn't.
And another good thing to do. Well, you should have insurance anyway, but if you have a few books that are far bigger than the others, put them in the bank, put them in a safe deposit box. Like you don't need to keep them all in the same place. You know what I mean? This can stay here, but if I have a $20,000 book, it's not going to sit next to this $500 book. I'll just put in a safe deposit box at the bank. And that's if you have a few books that are just massively bigger than the others. And that's like the bulk of your value is in a handful of books. And there are collectors like that, me included, that don't have we just have a handful of what are for us massive books. I don't have a room full of massive books. I've got a handful of what I consider massive books, and then the rest are just whatever. And then safety deposit box is a good place for those. And
the companies don't necessarily tell you this because it's a little bit of adverse claim selection, they feel, which is a term that gets into other stuff. But the bottom line is that there's certain questions that they ask you as soon as you submit a claim, and there's about 5 or so, and your answers to those questions will either kick you into coverage or out of coverage depending on what's going on. But one of the best things that one of the first questions they ask you if you have like a theft claim in your home is, do you have home security? Or in what way were your books secured? In what way was your collection secured? And if your answer is none, that's what I have insurance for, that's a little bit, your process is definitely going to take longer.
Well,
so I always recommend everybody, I said, you need to supplement. Your insurance is what picks up when the worst thing happens, but you should have some level of protection to guard against the worst thing happening if you really care about this, 6-figure collection. You need to, that's not 6 action figures. That's $6, right?
Yeah, and there's a difference between CIS and ACI where for theft especially, the notification period's about the same. You have to notify the police within 24 hours of learning of it. But I think CIS requires at a certain level, at least, you have to have some type of home security. ACI,
it depends on your value of your collection, but yes, there's a certain number. Once you pop that number, they consider it negligent if you don't have some sort of security.
Well, ACI is a lot looser with that, which I like, not because I don't have home security. It's because if you have home security, it doesn't matter. But there are times in life where we move, we're in an interim place in between, and I just want to make sure I'm covered whether there's a home security or not at any given point in the future where my collection might be somewhere else that doesn't necessarily have it. Like if we move into a new place and doesn't have security and we're in the process of getting security and there's a theft, I want to be covered when there wasn't security. You know what I mean? So ACI is a little looser with that, but yeah, you're right, Bub. That's definitely, you should have home security if you have a big collection.
Yeah. I mean, if you have something to protect it.
Yeah.
Don't rely on the last measure of recuperating value. You should want to protect what you actually have. Yeah, it's a whole lot cheaper and easier.
Preventative. The first part is preventative. The other one is sort of a backup to that.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's that. You don't want to lose your collection under any circumstances.
I mean, there's some books I'll never get back. Even if something happened, they'd be gone forever. Right.
I mean, some of my collection it's not expensive, but they're very very hard to find, very scarce, very oddball. That some took me decades to find. So there's no way. I mean, they don't have a monetary value per se, but in order to achieve the same, like you said, to sort of put yourself in the same place, it would take much more effort and many years that I have left of life to do that. So to me, a preventative is the way to go.
Yeah, certainly. Well, those are great questions.
But I do have insurance, by the way.
I would think nothing less, Roger.
Anybody who doesn't have it, it's like Bub says, if you have 5 or 10,000 even, it's so easy to get. I mean, just contact one of these people. They'll send you the stuff in the email and you print it out, sign it, send it back. And then, you may or may not have to tell them some of the stuff you have or whatever, but it's an easy process and it's definitely worth it. Yeah. And, it's expensive because like Kavi and Navy and Knights, we have levels of insurance that are, on the higher side, I guess. And, it's not that much. You break it down per month. It's, it's not that much. It's less than my car insurance. I'd much rather lose my car.
Wow.
I mean, I've got 2 cars. I have 2 cars. So my car insurance is more than my comic insurance, which is odd because I think the comics are worth more than the 2 cars I have. But, I don't know.
I'm not going to lose the 2 cars at the same time, though.
Yeah, the comic insurance is cheaper than the car insurance by a long shot.
Yeah, way cheaper.
Yeah, and that doesn't make sense because the comics are worth more than the cars.
Yeah, but remember, the car insurance also covers, liability.
Else.
Let's face it, DS, you're not taking any of your comics 70 miles an hour on a parkway out in the open. I mean, there's a level of risk involved your cars. And
Sunday drive. The problem with auto insurance, it's such a scam, is most of what we're paying for insurance is to insure other people, and it's a total scam. It should be like comic insurance. You insure yourself. If you're insuring yourself and you crash into somebody who's not insuring themselves, well, then they're out of luck because they chose not to have insurance. So too bad for them. And if I crash into somebody, I don't want to have to worry whether they have insurance or not, because I will have insurance. That's how it should work. That's not how it works. Most of my car insurance is to cover other people besides me. And I don't want to pay for it. If other people want to pay for their own insurance, they should get it. I'll cover myself. But that's not how it works with car insurance, and that's why it's so expensive.
Well, I won't correct you on that because we don't have time. But I have to say, since this does air on my channel, that the expressed views of DS Comics specifically on the topic of insurance are not only incorrect, but they're also ill-received by this member of the insurance and comic community. So that's just a rambling falsehood there. But we've got used to that from our fine folks here at the BUB'S Comics chat here. So yeah, that's all. It's all good. All right. Some neighbors are people who frequently wreck. Oh gosh, you guys are terrible. Yeah, it's true. I mean, there's fraud. There's fraud in everything. And every time somebody defrauds the system, everyone else pays the price
for it. Yep.
No, but why should I have to pay more for insurance based on living in a place where there's more idiots? I mean, I'll cover myself, and I am as safe as I am, and I shouldn't have to pay more or less depending on what other people are doing with their lives to have no control over it. So that's just at the crux of it. But we don't need to go down this.
Well, I'll get to you with my big spiel here in a minute. We got to get off here, man. We got people who care about us. So
I'm a libertarian. I'm a libertarian. I think everybody's responsible for themselves, and you should just live and let live. You do you, and let everybody else do them.
Oh, I agree. I don't think insurance should be. I agree. Other than the hit that my career would take, I don't think insurance should be mandatory. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, right.
And if you got rid of all the mandatory insurance out there, then premiums would go down because so many people are forced to have insurance when they really aren't insurable risks otherwise. Right. You know, you wouldn't want to insure these people because you know that they're a walking claim. Right. But you have to insure them, and they have to get insurance. And I swear there are people out there who get insurance for 30 days and drop it just long enough to get their tags and their plates and pretend that they're going to keep it for 6 months to a year. And in those 30 days, they still manage to turn in 1 or 2 claims. It's amazing.
Wow. Amazing.
Yep.
So anyway,
I've never put in a claim for my car. Never. In 40 years, I've never done it.
See, your premiums should be really low, and they're not low.
They're not.
Other people out there, but you should be rewarded for your good conduct by having a low premium.
Yes,
because even on the road, with all the drivers out there, I don't ever have incidents. I'm an excellent driver. I'm a 99th percentile in the world. I'm a fantastic driver. I'm one of the best drivers ever. I'm also very humble, by the way.
We noticed that.
Yeah, so look, most accidents are avoidable whether it's your fault or not. There's a lot of I assume that everybody on the road around me is a total idiot and is trying to crash into me, and I drive like that, and therefore I don't have incidents. I'm not looking at my phone as I go through a green light because I'm assuming the idiot on the red light is doing that and going through the red light. So I just wait, and sometimes people have, and I've slammed on the brakes because I'm paying attention and avoided it. I should be rewarded for that by having a lower premium.
Yeah.
The world according to BUB'S, I tell you.
Oh, it's an absolute wealth of entertainment and on occasion knowledge. Good stuff. All right, guys, let's wrap her up for tonight, and we'll see you next week. DS, you got anything you want to hawk to the community?
Yeah, Golden Guys tomorrow night, 10 p.m. on Comic Core, and then Thursday night, Tales from the Flip Side at 9 p.m. Old School Comics.
Nice.
Yeah, I like it. That's fun stuff.
Nice.
All right, Roger, you got anything coming up?
Yeah, I mean, on Thursday, I'll mention this. I did my top 50 comics I received from the community, and you two guys were in there, by the way.
You did it last Thursday?
Yeah. last Thursday.
I've had a very busy weekend. I'll get right to it.
No, I'm not saying you have to see it. I'm just saying, I did my top 50 kind of differently than most people have. And tomorrow I'm going to be dropping a video because I got a prize tag contest win, and a sort of an A-OK trade. So I'm going to be posting that tomorrow. And then Thursday is the roundup.
Oh, nice. You're busy.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
I have, actually, I got these Planet Comics volumes 1 and 2, the softies, the PS art books.
Mm-hmm.
The softies as an A-OK from our good buddy, the Jackson Roy Kirk.
Ooh.
And so I filmed a review of those. That'll be coming out Wednesday. And then I have not been picking up a lot of comics, and I have intended to ship off some books for grading, and I haven't got around to it either because I've been pressing for other people. So finally, when I get around to pressing my own books, then I will send those out. So I may have a little comic dry spell where I have to come out with some delves into the obscura, as Roger has perfected. I have to rewatch some of his videos and do some of that stuff. So I'll probably do some of that, maybe some comic repair and a few instructional videos and a couple more record plays on the weekend. So we'll have to fill in some shows until we pick up some more books.
Cool.
So that's what we'll have going on.
Yeah, I got a big book on the way. I'll show you guys while we're live for the reward for those who stuck through this show.
Ooh.
Nice. Is that the first Vulture, is it not? Or
it is first Vulture ASM 2 7.5 off white to white. Yeah, so pretty big purchase there. So I'm pretty happy with it.
7.5. That's ridiculous.
Wow.
I know.
Man, I've never seen one of those that wasn't chipped all over the place.
Yeah, this is a really, really nice copy. It's got like a little tanning on the spine, it looks like. But, I'm not going to complain about this copy.
Now dump it. Dump it.
Really
Sell it before it even comes in.
Really vivid
Probably
colors.
could, but I will dump it. That's the whole point. I got it, but I've got a nice little ASM project I worked on this year, so that's gonna pay off at the end of the year, early into next year. That's my plan.
Nice. I like it. Well, cool. We're looking forward to that. We'll see the little mini haul or whatever unboxing you do. All right. So, Roger, what do you want to tell the fine folks at home?
Well, first of all, apologize for my my absence through about half the chat, but I couldn't be helped. But everybody, remember to be back next week. Be blessed, and be back on my channel as well on tomorrow.
Sounds good to me. And DS, what did you want? Do you want to show anything else off?
No, I think you covered it there, bub.
All right. I was just checking.
That's just make sure everybody does their own homework. That's it.
All right. Right, do their homework. And I'll tell everybody to read a comic, or at least the grader's notes, and don't apologize for the glare. Catch you later, bye. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.